Hey guys, it's Tom Box, and welcome to the Everything Battle Phase video. Sorry, I felt a bit scruffy, so I went to go shave my face. So we're gonna dive deep into the battle phase and its structure. Now, the battle phase is one of the phases where a lot of people get cheesed of whether or not they can and cannot activate various things. So this is the Everything Battle Phase video, so we're gonna talk about the structure, what you can and cannot activate, and we're gonna go through every single step. Now, I will be speaking in fast effect timing and priority, so if you haven't seen the priority video, check out the priority ruling video first to give yourself better context, but if you're okay with that, then let's just move on. And of course, huge shout outs to my Patreon family. Thanks to your support, videos like these are now possible, so huge thank you to you guys, and let's get into this. The battle phase is made up of 4 steps. You have the start step, the moment you enter it, you have the battle step, the damage step, and the end step when you declare you're ending the battle phase. However, it's not exactly sequential like this. In fact, it's more like a T branch where you have the start step at the beginning, end step at the end, and then you have the battle step right in the middle. Where in the battle step, you can choose to go into the damage step if you declare the attack, or you can try to end the battle phase by going to the end step afterwards. So let's break it down, starting with the start step. Now, when both players agree to move into the battle phase where both players pass priority, you go to the start step of the battle phase, and at the start step, you are able to activate fast effects at this point. So the turn player can activate fast effects, and if you want to move into the battle step, you have to pass priority and give your opponent the opportunity to activate their fast effects as well before you go into the battle step. So you're technically not in this open game state just yet, but you have to move past that point. So if you have nothing to activate during this time, then you pass priority to your opponent, and if they have something to activate, like threatening more to prevent you from declaring your very first attack, they have the timing to do so at this very point. Which is why whenever someone says, at the beginning of the battle phase, I can activate something, that means they're declaring their activation right at the start step before your first attack declaration. So the most common issues that arises in the start step of the battle phase is that one player is advancing the steps too quickly, typically the turn player, and in that case, you can usually try to rewind. But to avoid these cases, always prompt your opponent as the turn player, prompt them that you have priority, or you give them, say, you have any response when we're entering the battle phase? And if they say no, then you can advance forward. But usually what happens is a case like this where someone controls Utopia the Lightning or Armades, both these monsters, whenever they declare an attack, there is no response whatsoever. Say I'm on the receiving end and my opponent goes, enter battle phase. I'm like, okay, declare an attack with Utopia the Lightning. At that point, I'd be like, hold on a second. I can hold you back at the start step and be like, before you declare your attack, at the start step of the battle phase, I would like to activate compulsory evacuation device, bounce your Utopia the Lightning. At this point, they would have entered battle phase and they would have lost their monster. So that's what I was aiming for. But if they gave me the prompt, say, we're entering battle phase, and then you say, okay, and then they say any response, basically that is passing a priority. And if you say no at this point, if they declare the attack with Utopia now, you can't activate that compulsory evacuation device, nor could you move back to the start step because you are already past priority. So that's the example I'm going to give you guys. But remember, it's up to both players to maintain proper game states. And also remember that the start step is the sole reason why you can activate something before your opponent declares an attack. This is not like the main phase, where the moment you enter a main phase, it is an open game state where the turn player can perform the first action. Whereas in the battle phase, there's that start step buffer where both players get quick effects. So that's kind of where that stands. So once you have moved past the start step, we both now enter the battle step. Now the battle step is an open game state where the turn player gets to perform the very first action, activating effects, declaring attacks, or ending the battle phase. So we're going to talk about what happens when you try to exit out of the battle step, what happens when you declare an attack, and what happens when a replay occurs. So when you try to leave the battle step of the battle phase, note that you actually have to pass priority to your opponent to do so, because both players must agree to move out of the battle step to proceed to the end step of the battle phase. That is something that is working with the rules of fast effect timing, where in an open game state you can pass priority to your opponent, and if both players pass priority, that's when the phase can advance. It's no different within the battle step, of course. In the battle step, your opponent can hold you in the battle step before you activate your evenly match or something like that. So they actually have 2 opportunities to activate Mind Crush to take out the evenly match in your hand. One at the start step and one at the battle step as well, because you cannot just jump to the end step. Now say instead of leaving the battle phase, I'm choosing to attack with one of my monsters. I select one of my monsters and then I declare an attack on the appropriate target. So when I declare an attack, I would have opened the attack declaration window or the attack declaration timing. At that point, this is a specific timing that only occurs once per battle, so you use this to activate various cards like Mirror Force, or you use it for Linkuriboh. Now there's a difference between the monster trigger effects versus the traps with the activation condition. They're quite different because traps, because they're spell speed 2, they can always chain on top as much as they want, whereas the triggers of monster, because they are not, well, spell speed 2, they can't chain on top of anything, so they have to occur right at the attack declaration, or else you will miss your timing to do so. When the attack declaration chain resolves, you're not in the damage step just yet. You're in the before damage step, which is still part of the battle step. So you're still able to activate cards like Book of Moon, Compulse. However, cards like Mirror Force and anything that requires an attack declaration at this point can no longer activate. So when I declare an attack, there are 4 possible outcomes for that attack. Either A, that monster's attack will proceed to the damage step, means it's successful. B, my monster's attack is not successful due to card effects. C, the monsters on my opponent's side of the field has changed or moved in and out of the field. And D, my attack target is no longer valid. So for A to occur, proceeding into the damage step, all that needs to happen is the attacking monster is still in a position where it can attack the opposing monster. The opposing target is still on the field, and monsters do not enter or leave your opponent's side of the field, and that's the basic condition to move into the damage step. Whereas B, the attack is no longer successful. Either A, it got negated by a card effect, B, the monster got removed from the field, destroyed or banished, or bounced back to hand, or C, the battle position of the monster changed to defense position and it is not able to attack in defense position. Those would be considered as unsuccessful attacks. The monster still is considered to have declared an attack, so it cannot change battle position. Whereas C, the number of monsters on your opponent's side of the field changed, or monsters moved in and out of the field by special summoning or being placed on, that would cause a replay to occur where I can reselect the attack target. Note that I'm saying reselect the attack target on the replay because it is specifically just that. It's not an attack redeclaration, it's just reselecting a target. And then there is D, whereas the target is no longer valid. In this case, this kind of relates to a direct attacking monster. Say I use a Trickstar Lilybell to attack directly past my opponent's monster. However, when I do my attack declaration, my opponent used a card effect, say Forbidden Chalice, to negate my effect, so I can no longer do a direct attack while he has a monster. In that case, a replay will occur because the valid attack target is no longer on the field. So that would cause a replay to occur as well. If a replay occurs, the options available would be to select a new valid attack target or to back out of the attack entirely. If you choose to back out of the attack, your monsters would still have considered to have declared an attack and therefore cannot change battle position in main phase 2, nor can it declare a new attack if the monster is not able to attack more than once. Please note that this is an attack target reselection, not an attack declaration. There's a difference between the two because being an attack target reselection, it does not trigger any of the attack declaration effects, nor does it meet the activation conditions for various traps. So if you go ahead and use Linkuriboh to cause a replay, which is to eat up, say, a goat token and put the Linkuriboh onto the field, well, Linkuriboh is going to be the new attack target, and Linkuriboh will not be able to activate because there is no attack declaration, and Linkuriboh will proceed into the damage step and basically get slaughtered. Damage step! So once we move past the battle step, we are now going into the damage step. In the damage step, we have 5 types of card activation we're allowed. We have 5 sub-steps that we're going to talk about, and we also have the Mark for Destruction terminology that we will also talk about. So what you're allowed to activate in the damage step, well, there's 5 different kinds of card effects. You have the first type, which would be the attack and defense modifiers. These are pretty simple. You can activate them up until a specific point. The second type of card effect would be activation negation based effects, where they specifically have to negate the activation of a card effect or a card activation. The third type would be cards that activate specifically in the damage step, which do not match the previous 2. You can activate trigger effects, and you can also activate counter traps. And those would make up the 5 types of card effects that can activate in the damage step. The damage step now is boiled down to 5 different sub-steps. We have the start of the damage step, we have before damage calculation, performing damage calculation, after damage calculation, and we have end of the damage step. Each of these substeps relate to a different trigger timing, and at each step, different actions occur. Damage step substep 1, the start of the damage step. This is kind of like a buffer timing to identify that you are no longer in the battle step, and there are various monsters that do activate at this point, and they activate here because it does not allow you to get another attack out of these monsters, such as Neospatian Grand Mole and El Shaddoll Construct. Whereas Grand Mole would remove both monsters by bouncing them back to the hand, and we have Construct that would probably destroy the special summon monster. If any monsters involved with that battle are removed from the field during the damage step, the battle will basically conclude and you will not move forward with any of the other substeps, nor will a replay occur. And also, face down monsters do not flip face up at this point. Substep 2, before damage calculation. At this point, face down monsters are flip face up, and if that monster has a flip effect, it does not activate until substep 4. So you just keep that in mind. If the triggers are going through, they will happen later on. If the monster that has been flip face up has a continuous effect, it will be applied right now. However, if it has an effect that prevents it from being targeted for various attacks, that will not stop the current attack from going through, so we will proceed through the rest of the damage step. Now, before damage calculation is the last instance where you can activate attack and defense modifiers to affect the outcome of the battle. Now, there are cards that are able to activate at this particular substep that could potentially remove the monsters involved with the battle. Those cards include Thunder Dragon Titan and True Draco Apocalypse. If the monsters involved with that battle are removed, then the battle will basically end and there is no replay that will occur. In the case where a monster would have a self-destructing effect, or there's a floodgate that prevents multiple types of monsters to be on the field at the exact same time, those effects are not applied at this point. So instead, you will continue with the current battle and proceed to damage calculation until after damage calculation, that's when those effects are applied if that monster survived the battle. Substep 3, damage calculation. At this point you check for two things, the monster that is marked for destruction and the amount of damage a player will receive. And at the end of this substep, both those things will be done. Now, there are other effects that can activate at this point, and they are marked with the wording during damage calculation. They can be continuous like, they can be triggers, but that is the timing that they will activate. Now, other things that can happen at this particular point include if a monster that will be marked for destruction can prevent its destruction, such as banishing a card such as Thunder Dragon Colossus, you perform those actions now. They might not activate, they might be continuous, but you do these actions right now, so it prevents it from being marked for destruction further down the damage step. Also, if you have a card effect that can prevent the current battle damage from going through, you activate it at this point, such as a Kuriboh. Now note that monsters that are marked for destruction, they don't exactly go to the graveyard just yet. They're still on the field, however they have to wait till substep 5 before they're sent to the graveyard or sent to wherever that they're supposed to go. So while they're still on the field, specific rules apply to them. These monsters are considered to be destroyed by battle, their continuous effects no longer apply, their optional quick effects cannot be activated, and they cannot be used as cost for optional quick effects either. So note that I'm saying quick effects and optional, yeah, nothing can apply right there. And they cannot be bounced back to the hand, they cannot be targeted for card effects, and their battle position and attack and defense cannot change. However, their trigger effects can still go off, whether it be optional or mandatory, and if they have a mandatory quick effect, that will still apply and they can be used as cost for mandatory quick effects. Now, a monster that has been marked for destruction by battle, they can still technically be destroyed by a card effect. Say for an effect that activates after damage calculation, destroy that monster that battled this monster. If it has an effect like that, that monster would not be considered to be destroyed by battle. So if they have a battle destruction based trigger, that will actually not go off. Substep 4, after damage calculation. So at this point, the monster has been marked for destruction and the damage has been dealt. That monster is still technically on the field until the next step will be sent away, but at this particular point, a lot of backed up flip effects, trigger effects, and any sort of floodgate that would apply that would prevent a monster from being on the field, that will apply right now if that monster isn't destroyed by battle. So if that's the case, note that all the flip effects and trigger effects will go off and basically form a chain, and the trigger conditions often state with the wording after damage calculation, if this monster battle, if this monster attack or was attacked, those are all the triggers that will go off after damage calculation. And the floodgates will apply, you'll send the monster away if they are not allowed to be on the field, and so on and so forth. If you want to learn more about the particular triggers and what timing do they activate, go check out the official Yugioh website and look up the damage step rulings. They have it basically marked out in a perfectly organized chart. Finally, substep 5, the end of the damage step. At this point, the monster that has been marked for destruction by battle will be sent to the graveyard or wherever it's supposed to go. And also, a lot of the trigger effects where a monster has been moved to a specific place, such as based off of their destruction, or if they get banished, or wherever, if they get moved around, this is where those things activate. Such as if this monster destroys a monster by battle, it will activate this effect, or if this monster has been destroyed and sent to the graveyard, or this card has been destroyed, this is where the timing of those cards will activate. Now note that you cannot activate Ash Blossom Joyous Spring, say if you hit a Mystic Tomato and it's going to summon out another monster from the deck, because Ash Blossom Joyous Spring does not negate the activation, rather it negates the effect, and since you're still in the damage step, you're basically locked into activation negations and counter traps. However, if you have a Ghost Spell and there's a monster that would revive itself at the end of the damage step, you can activate Ghost Spell to prevent that, because Ghost Spell, on the other hand, negates the activation of cards. So once you have completed the damage step, you are moved back into the battle step where it's an open game state. Now, the other thing you can do in the battle step is trying to end it. If both players agree to move past this and you proceed to the end of the battle phase, at this point, you can activate cards like Evenly Matched. Note that once you have proceeded to the end step, it's like a timing window where it's like before I go into main phase 2. And you have to go into main phase 2, by the way. So you can activate cards like Evenly Matched and stuff like Gladiator Beast. They activate at this particular time in the battle phase. Now note that there are other cards that can lead directly into the end step of the battle phase, such as Battle Fader, Swift Scarecrow, and Electromagnetic Turtle. All these card effects say end the battle phase, and by saying end the battle phase, it basically leads you to the end step of the battle phase where you can still activate cards like Evenly Matched, which is kind of neat. Just a lot of people kind of skip over it. It's not exactly the most necessary thing to know, but hey, it's better to know it than not. Now, a key thing to note about the end step of the battle phase is that, remember, you cannot move backwards and go back to the battle step. So if your opponent activates something at the end step of the battle phase and do something into the field, note that you can't go back, and the only direction you have to go is to go into main phase 2. This is unlike, say, the main phase, where if your opponent activates something before you go into the battle phase, you can still remain in that main phase. Whereas for the battle phase, you're kind of stuck at that end step still, where the next step is still only to move forward to main phase 2. So that is all I got for this battle phase everything video. Looking at my life points, I have very little left because this thing took forever to do. I did over 300 takes on this because the wording had to be very specific, and I went full scripted without the internet, which was pretty crazy. But if you guys enjoyed this video, hit me with a thumbs up. If you guys want to stick around for more MST.TV goodness, such as deck profiles and a bunch of fun proxies, and maybe my forte of live duels, don't forget to stick around and hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and if you want to check out other videos, you can hit one of those links around this area. I'm trying to work on a new end card, and as always, I guess I'm going to ask you guys to hold on to your MST.TV, and I'm going to proceed to my end phase. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please drop us a like so we know we are doing a good job, and you can also subscribe to MST.TV for more fantastic videos by clicking on the button on the left. Don't forget to check out our partners at Imperium Duelist. They make really high quality mats, including some of my own limited edition release stuff. And if you want to check out one of our past videos, click here on the right. As always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV, and I'll see you next time.